Good morning, afternoon, and evening, whatever time zone you're waking up in or winding down in right now. I'm Joe. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I've got my coffee right here. The steam is still rising, and I'm so ready to get into it today. Sitting right across from me,
I'm Sunny.
Basically acts as the guardrails to my speeding car, keeping us on the road and
We're
out of the ditch.
We're basically cock-blocking each other here. I prefer to think of myself as a navigation system. I just tell you when to turn so we don't hit a wall. It's great to be back.
Yeah, fair enough. So Sip and Talkers, I kind of have to start today's show with a bit of a confession. And honestly, it's a little embarrassing. You know, as an American, I grew up with this deeply ingrained sense of national pride. I hold that dark blue passport. And I feel like, yeah, I'm part of a superpower. It's supposed to be the golden ticket, right? Like, I just show up and the velvet rope lists for me.
Right. It's a powerful document, absolutely. Historically, I mean, it's one of the most coveted in the entire world.
That's exactly what I thought. But listen to this reality check. I was traveling recently, heading over to Europe with a friend of ours who's from Taiwan. Now, we get to the airport, we land, and we're walking toward immigration. My heart starts doing that little anxious thump. I've got my itinerary printed out. I'm mentally rehearsing my answers about where I'm staying, how long I'll be there, how much cash is in my wallet. I'm genuinely sweating a little bit.
The standard high security drill. You were bracing for the full interrogation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I look over, and my Taiwanese friend is just breezing right through. They walked up to the automated gate, scanned that green passport. The gate swung open and they were through. Literally seconds. Meanwhile, I'm getting the third degree from an officer who looks like he suspects I'm trying to move in permanently. And I'm standing there in that long line thinking, wait a minute, who is the superpower here?
Ugh, the airport epiphany. It's a cold splash of water, isn't it? You just discovered the very real difference between muscle and trust. And frankly, it's a distinction a lot of Americans and leaders of other major nations, honestly, completely fail to understand.
Yes, and that's exactly what we need to unpack today, because on paper, the U.S. is the big dog.
Yeah.
But when you look at the 2026 data we have right in front of us, that little green passport from Taiwan, a place that's diplomatically invisible to most of the world, is basically a global VIP pass. How does that math even work?
It's fascinating when you break it down. To really understand it, we have to look at the scoreboard. If we pull up the Henley Passport Index for February 2026, the U.S. is sitting at rank number 10. We have visa-free access to about 180 destinations. Now, to the average listener, that probably sounds pretty good.
I mean, it sounds decent, sure. But number 10, for the world's largest economy, that feels incredibly low.
It feels low because we're getting beaten by countries with a fraction of our GDP and zero aircraft carriers. This is the cold, hard truth. Being powerful doesn't mean you're easy to get along with. The U.S. is involved in everyone's business. We have strict security. We demand fingerprints from almost everyone visiting us. And we have what I like to call the safety tax.
The safety tax. I like that term. Break that down for us.
It's the friction caused by paranoia. Because the U.S. is so intensely obsessed with homeland security, we make it very hard for others to visit us. In diplomacy, everything is a mirror. It's entirely based on reciprocity. So because we treat the world with suspicion, the world treats us with a similar level of guardedness. We're not the friendly neighbor. We're the neighbor with the barbed wire fence and the guard dog.
So we're basically the bouncer of the world, and people don't exactly love the bouncer.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with Taiwan. This is the anomaly we're talking about. Diplomatically, they only have 12 official allies left. In the United Nations, they basically don't exist. Yet that passport has visa-free access to 141 destinations. And not just random spots. We're talking the EU, Japan, the US, Canada.
That's the core theme I want to get into today. For us Americans, power is muscle and money. We think, I have a big economy, let me in. But for the Taiwanese passport, power seems to be defined completely differently. It seems to be, the world thinks you are safe.
That's the perfect way to frame it. It's the fundamental difference between a credit score and a military threat. Think of it this way. You might have a neighbor who's a heavyweight boxer. He's strong, he's scary, and he has a lot of money. But would you give him a key to your house to water your plants while you're away?
Probably not. I mean, if he gets mad, he might punch a hole in the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the quiet librarian next door who always follows the rules, you'd give them the key in a heartbeat. That is the difference. Why do some nations teach their citizens how to be strong, but entirely forget to teach them how to be trusted?
Okay, let's look at the scoreboard then. The 2026 Global Trust Report, essentially. Who's winning this game? Who's the librarian in your analogy?
If we look at the very top, it's Singapore at number 1 with 192 destinations. Singapore is the model student. It's a small nation. It threatens absolutely no one militarily. Its power comes from being neutral, transparent, and following the rules to the absolute letter.
Ah, the teacher's pet.
In the best way possible, yes. Then you have Japan at number 2 with 187. That's the stable power. High economic strength combined with extremely high citizen quality. When a Japanese tourist arrives, the host country assumes they'll spend money, be polite, and go home on time.
Right. And then you have the UK at number 7 with 185.
Yes, the old power. Even with all the Brexit complications, their legacy trust remains incredibly high. People still highly trust the British passport.
And then there's us at number 10. But way down the list, we see another rising power. Let's talk about China, because they've been expanding their influence so aggressively over the last few decades. Where do they land on this index?
They're at rank 58, access to roughly 85 destinations. Now, this is where the disconnect is most visible. China has the world's largest diplomatic footprint. As of 2026, they have 274 embassies and consulates. They are literally number 1 in the world in terms of diplomatic buildings.
I call this the chain store king.
Yeah.
They have the most locations. They have a massive storefront on every single corner. But having a store on the corner doesn't mean I'm going to automatically give you a key to my house.
That's a brilliant analogy. Embassies represent influence. That's hard power. It says, I'm here, you have to deal with me. But visa-free access represents reciprocity and risk assessment. It says, I trust your people to come into my living room and not break the furniture. China has the influence, but they haven't unlocked the reciprocity yet.
So let's dig into that Taiwan paradox again, because it really blows my mind. 12 official allies. By all accounts, they should be totally isolated. But they have this incredible high-leverage conversion rate where 12 allies somehow turn into 141 open doors. How is that even possible if countries are so terrified of offending Beijing?
It comes down to distinguishing between political recognition and substantive trust. The world is very complicated. Countries might not be able to politically recognize Taiwan because of immense diplomatic pressure. They can't put up an official embassy sign on a building in their capital. But immigration controls are practical, not just political. They fundamentally trust the people.
So the politicians are saying, I don't officially know you, but the immigration officers are saying, hey, come on in.
Exactly. Taiwanese citizens are viewed globally as high-quality assets. They spend money, they have a very low crime rate abroad, and significantly, the government there ensures very secure documentation. Those chip passports they use are absolutely top tier. This is economic functional trust. The world is pragmatic, they want the business, and they don't fear the traveler.
On the flip side, we have the U.S. struggle. You mentioned earlier that we're sliding a bit. What exactly happened in early 2026?
Well, Customs and Border Protection, the CBP, ramped up biometric requirements again. We started demanding even more data from visitors. And in the world of diplomacy, as I said, everything is a mirror. When a superpower gets too anxious and demands more hurdles, allies like the EU start reconsidering their own reciprocity. They say, okay, if you're going to make it this hard for our people, we might have to add an extra step for yours. When you become too obsessed with security, you actually erode the very trust you're trying to build.
Oh, man. It's like being that friend who makes everyone sign an NDA before entering their house. Eventually, people just stop inviting you over because it's way too much hassle.
That's surprisingly accurate. You become the high-maintenance friend of the global community.
Now, I've noticed China trying to fix this recently. In the last year or so, like late 2025 into 2026, they've been handing out visa-free access like candy. You get a visa, you get a visa. France, Germany, the UK, they're just opening their doors unilaterally to these countries.
They're actively trying to buy trust. It's a calculated strategy of using convenience to repair deep trust gaps. They're essentially saying, look, we'll let you in for free, no questions asked, please, just like us. But notice, it's unilateral. Those European countries haven't necessarily reciprocated yet. You can't force someone to trust you just by being nice to them once. Trust is a long-term track record, not a quick transaction.
That brings me to a story I heard from a friend. Let's talk about the quality of access. Because having a high number of destinations is one thing, but the actual experience at the border is another. I heard this story about a Chinese friend traveling in Europe. They were in line right behind a Japanese traveler.
Oh, I can completely imagine how this goes.
Yeah, so the Japanese traveler steps up to the booth. Bam, stamp, welcome to Paris, enjoy your stay. Then my friend steps up. The customs officer looks at the passport, and you can visibly see the face drop, the heavy sigh, the eye roll. Suddenly it's, show me your return ticket. Show me your hotel booking. How much cash do you have on you?
That face drop is the physical manifestation of the risk assessment we're talking about. It's not just about national strength or how many aircraft carriers your country has. It's about the officer looking at that document and thinking, what are the statistical odds this person is actually here just for tourism versus trying to work illegally?
It feels incredibly personal, though. It feels humiliating when you're the one standing there.
It absolutely feels personal to the traveler, but from the border perspective, it's purely statistical. A visa-free agreement is essentially a government guarantee. The issuing government is saying, I promise my citizens will behave, follow your laws, and return home. When you see that intense scrutiny at the border, it's because that government guarantee is viewed as shaky.
And there's a very distinct difference in where you can go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taiwan gets access to the really high-quality zones, things like ESTA for the U.S., the Schengen zone for Europe, Japan, Canada. Why is that?
It's because of incredibly low illegal overstay rates. Taiwan has proven over decades that its citizens go home. China's visa-free list has definitely grown to about 85 countries now. But if you look closely at the map, it's heavily weighted toward Africa, Central Asia, and parts of Southeast Asia. Access to the West is still strictly controlled. And we really have to talk about the walking the line factor here.
Walking the line, you mean the recent migration issues?
Yes. In 2024 and 2025, we saw a massive surge in migrants trekking through the rainforests in South America to reach the U.S. border. A very significant demographic shift during that time was the sharp increase in Chinese nationals making that dangerous trek.
Right, I remember reading so many articles about that. The numbers spiked dramatically.
Exactly. And here is the brutal logic of global immigration. One bad apple spoils the bunch. Even if 99% of travelers from a country are legitimate businessmen or tourists, if there's a highly visible 1% risk of illegal immigration or asylum seeking, it creates a massive social and political cost for the destination country. That 1% forces the customs officer in Paris or Los Angeles to treat everyone from that country like a potential suspect.
Wow. So it's basically group credit. If your college roommates never pay their share of the rent, the landlord isn't going to rent to you either, even if you personally have a great steady job. You're dragging their credit score around with you.
That is exactly it. You inherit the group credit score of your passport.
Yeah.
And this leads to a broader clash of cultures that I think is really important to address today. We need to talk about the psychology of new money versus civilization.
Oh, this is the spicy part. The clash between getting rich and following the rules. We've all seen the viral headlines. The wealthy influencers in 2025 causing absolute chaos for traffic in Japan or climbing on historic monuments in Paris just to get a photo.
The nouveau riche phenomenon. It happens in almost every rapidly rising economy. You have incredibly rapid wealth accumulation. But civic education and social etiquette haven't quite caught up to the bank accounts yet.
It's like if a guest is super rich, wearing a solid gold Rolex, but he spits on the floor of the fancy restaurant, he's not getting the VIP seat next time he comes in, no matter how much he tips.
And he definitely isn't getting a key to the restaurant. But here's the critical part of this dynamic. How does the nation or the individual react when they get called out for that bad behavior?
Oh, I can act this out perfectly. When they get stopped at customs or when locals criticize their behavior, the first reaction is almost never, oh, I'm so sorry, my mistake. It's usually screaming into a smartphone camera, this is discrimination, you're insulting my country.
Yes. In psychology and sociology, we call this the attribution error. Instead of reflecting on why the scrutiny exists in the first place, asking themselves, is it because of illegal overstays? Is it because of public disorder? The education system in some of these rising powers actively encourages blaming external bias.
The victim narrative, it's always someone else's fault.
Right. If you're taught from kindergarten that the world is out to get us, or the West is actively trying to keep us down, then every single neutral security check or enforcement of local rules feels like a targeted act of hostility. You completely miss the chance to fix the actual underlying problem.
But history shows us you can fix it, right? This kind of reputation isn't a permanent tattoo.
Absolutely not permanent. Just look at Japan in the 1970s. People tend to forget this today, but back then, Japanese tourists were often called economic animals in the global press. They were seen as loud, pushy tourists, buying up all the luxury goods and ignoring local customs. What did they do? They implemented strict domestic education on public behavior. The core message was, do not cause trouble for others. And they completely fixed their global image.
And Taiwan in the 90s, I remember hearing stories about the Republic of Copies.
Yes. Taiwan had a terrible reputation for intellectual property theft and massive visa overstays in the 80s and 90s. How did they fix it? Strict domestic laws, a rapidly rising civic consciousness, and a transition to democracy. They realized that to be respected globally, they had to be trustworthy fundamentally.
So if Japan and Taiwan evolved, where is China currently in this process?
Currently, they seem somewhat stuck in that victim phase. There's a rigid refusal to self-correct because admitting there's a behavioral problem is seen as losing face nationally. But without self-correction, credit repair is impossible. You can build 1,000 more embassies across the globe, but you won't get that visa waiver to the US or the EU until the underlying trust metrics actually change.
It really makes you think deeply about what power actually means. We spend so much time on the news talking about GDP growth, trade deficits, and military spending, but maybe we're completely missing the point of what makes a nation truly powerful.
If we connect this all back to the bigger picture, true power isn't just tanks and missiles. It isn't just the sheer size of your economy or how many goods you export. True power is the courage of a government to tell its own citizens your behavior out there affects our national credit. Strong nations don't just win wars, they win the world's respect.
That is so profoundly true. A passport is really just a piece of paper. It's blue or green or red paper. The actual person holding it is the brand ambassador. You don't want to be the rich guy that everyone secretly hates. You want to be the guy everyone is genuinely happy to see walk through the door.
And achieving that takes a very different kind of strength. It takes humility, it takes self-awareness, and it takes consistency over decades.
Well, this conversation has definitely changed how I'm going to look at that huge line at immigration next time I travel. I might even stop complaining about having to take my shoes off at TSA. Okay, actually, no, I'll definitely still complain about taking my shoes off.
Some things will never change.
True. But before we wrap up today, we really want to reiterate something important to everyone listening. We're throwing around a lot of data and national comparisons today.
Yes, very important point. This is an objective analysis of facts, geopolitical trends, and international immigration policies. It is absolutely not about discrimination against any specific group of people or any nationality. The goal here is to foster independent thinking. We want you to understand the actual mechanics of why the world works the way it does, beyond just the political rhetoric.
Exactly. We're just sipping coffee and talking facts here. And speaking of traveling and seeing the world from different perspectives, I have to give a massive shout out to an old friend of ours.
Oh, absolutely. We have to mention him.
If you want to see what it's actually like to travel the globe with some of these cultural perspectives in mind, you have to check out Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life. He's got some amazing new travel vlogs up right now. I was watching one last night, and the production quality is just next level. It makes you want to pack a bag immediately.
Always incredible content from Mickey. He really captures the authentic vibe of a place, not just the tourist trap.
So go search and subscribe to Mickey to Life on YouTube. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the Sip and Talk podcast right here on whatever platform you're using. We love having you hang out with us every week.
We certainly do. Thanks for listening.
All right, that's it for us today. Keep sipping, keep talking, and we'll see you in the next episode.